Hi, my name is Andrew Weiss. Welcome to the last podcast of the year for BSP Software. I want to thank everybody for their viewership this year as we've just broken 100,000 views on our YouTube channel. This month I've asked an old Cognos colleague of mine, Ray Hogan, to demonstrate one of the topics that he has in his ebook, 10 Hard to Learn Tips for Becoming an Advanced Report Studio Developer. Both of his ebooks are available for Kindle and at a great price. Just search for Ray Report Studio on Amazon and treat yourself this holiday season. So thank you for watching, and take it away, Ray.
Thanks, Andy. Andy and I worked together at Cognos in Princeton a few years ago, and I don't know if you know this about Andy, but he was one of the primary developers of Cognos Office Connection. That's very impressive in my book. So a little bit about me. I'm a 30-year hands-on IT developer. I've kind of evolved since DOS 1.0 up through today. Mostly work with relational database systems, but about 10 years ago or so, I kind of burned out on development and did some technical training. I actually taught web development at a university in New Jersey. And then a few years later, I went back to training again, and I worked for Cognos for 3 years as an in-class trainer. And currently, I work for a major financial institution, and I do Cognos development. I do software development in .NET, and I do some Cognos training for them. So let's get started with the first video here. Today I'm going to cover a technique that I refer to as an in-column filter. So what is an in-column filter? Well, it's a filter. It reduces the data that you see in your return results. It's different from a traditional filter because a traditional filter is added to a query as a separate instance, a separate entity. This technique uses a calculation and some logic perform the same function as a filter does. So you might recall in Cognos, what Cognos does is it aggregates at the lowest level of detail in a report. So for instance, if I have country and state in my report, and I put a number, let's say it's population, Cognos will roll up population for each unique combination of country and state. If I then go ahead and change that, let's say I remove state, then Cognos would give me a total for each country. So it's looking at the text field, determining what level to aggregate, and it's aggregating the numeric columns. So we're going to leverage that capability in Cognos, and what we're going to do is we're going to manipulate our returned result set to modify what the value that is being aggregated in each row. So for example, if I'm back to the country example, but I do want to omit New Jersey, I could put a calculation in there that says when the query is executing, if it determines that a given row is from New Jersey, you as the author of that calculation can modify that value to be 0. So when the total is rolled up, New Jersey will be omitted from the total. Now look, it's easier in that case to put a filter on the query just to say, not New Jersey, and it would do the same thing. But this technique is useful in other ways. You will find that one of the main benefits of this technique is that it makes you as a report developer more productive. And it can also reduce your report complexity from a query perspective. So let's get started. We're going to build it. For starters, I'm going to just build a simple report. I'm going to put the English name of the product, and I'm going to put the order number in my report. Now, order number, although it's numeric, it's really treated as a text column. And if I ran the report right now, the way Cognos works in default is it would show me every order number for each product line. That's because order number is treated as a text, and text, all distinct values are shown. I'm going to go ahead, though, and I'm going to change the aggregate function of the order number column, and I'm going to change it to count. That'll count all of the unique order numbers for each product line. Let me go ahead and show you that. And this is just setting the stage for doing our in-column filter, so you can see the grand total. And there you see the camping equipment has 3,771 unique order numbers. Now what we're going to do is we're going to build the in-column filter. We do that by adding a calculation. We had a query calculation from our toolbox to our report. And I'll title this one 2004. And I'm going to go ahead and write my expression. So it's if the year of order date equals 2004, then put in a 1 here. Otherwise, put a 0. Now, why am I putting a 1 and 0? Well, my strategy here is to just note whether or not I'm in 2004 or not by putting a 1. And then I'm going to use the aggregation capabilities of Cognos to roll up all of those 1s. So in fact, I'm going to total the 1s, which, if you think about it, is really giving me a count, right? Because it's either 1 or 0, meaning it's in 2004. So when I add them all up, I'll know how many orders I had that existed in 2004. I'm going to go ahead and run it. And you will see that Cognos is still messing with us a little bit. It's doing what we've actually asked it, and we just have to get clear on what we're trying to ask it. So what Cognos is doing is it's saying, look, there's 2 unique values for camping equipment for this column. There's some rows that have 0 in it, and there's some rows that have 1 in it. So it's breaking that down and aggregating by each of those. So here's the 1151 when it's 2004, and here's the rest of them. That's not really what I want. I want 1 row with camping equipment and the total for 2004. I don't want to repeat my product lines each time for this. So what's really happening is Cognos is aggregating incorrectly because the default aggregation for this calculation is automatic. Now, I'm a big believer in principles. I like principles. I think they do a lot for me personally. When I understand kind of the principle behind something, it's long-lasting value, you understand it deeper, you can apply it in different ways, twist it, and really kind of own the material that you're working with. So one of my principles in IT is that explicit always beats implicit. And therefore, I'm not a fan of a setting like automatic, which means somebody else figures out what to do here. I would prefer to be explicit in this case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to total the 1s and 0s, which is really a count. Okay, but if I put count, it would count how many different values exist in this column, which would be 2. We don't want that. We want to roll up the 1s and 0s. And now you can see I've reduced the number of rows in product line. Camping equipment is showing my 2004 breakdown. Okay, at this point, it hasn't really saved us much time because it's a single query, and if we had to stop the report right there, it's a trade-off on whether, which one will save you time. But we're going to go ahead and make 2005 and 6, and this is where you as a developer will become more productive. I'm going to go ahead and copy my calculation twice. I'm going to modify the logic. Put 2005 and 2006 in there. I'm going to go back and rename them so I don't lose track of what I'm doing here. And lastly, I'm going to go ahead and add them to my report. I go to my second tab to get the things from the query. You can multi-select them and drag them in at once. Order of selection is order of insertion. And there's my 2004, 5, and 6 breakdown for camping equipment. I put it together pretty fast, so it made me productive. I want to go back to the query just for a second and talk about the alternatives. So if I was going to build this as a query strategy, this would be my first query. Then I'd need another one with product line in it, and the count and a filter on there for 2005. Then I'd have to join those 2 queries together, and then I'd have to join the 2006 together. So basically, you need about 5 queries to solve this problem. And using this technique, I've done it in 1. So that's one of the big benefits, is you become a little more productive. It makes the report much more maintainable. The other thing that I like about using a calculation is it gives you a couple advantages from a diagnostic perspective. I find it easier if I have a big complex logical situation, I can build it by breaking it into multiple calculations, and I can get inside my calculation and figure out if my parentheses are in the wrong place, or if I've done something wrong. Basically, diagnosing is a lot easier that way. The technique I've just shown you comes from one of my ebooks that I have up on Amazon. So if you're interested in finding them, you can go to Amazon and search for my name, and I search for Ray Hogan in 2 ebooks, 10 hard-to-learn tips for becoming an advanced report studio developer. And there I show you this technique and I think 9 or 10 others. I think I have a bonus in this book. I also have a book on 10 core principles of report studio development. I'm a big principle believer. I like to boil things down when I learn them into underlying principles because the principles I find can then be used in a broader fashion. My name is Ray Hogan. Thanks for watching. Bye.